Hello and welcome back to Exothermic Plays Games. I'm Exothermic and the date today is Sunday, July 14th, 2024. I've been doing a countdown of my favorite video games of all time through each day of the year, and coming in at number 171 is BioShock 2.
Take the pistol. Place it against your head. Fire.
I'm covering the BioShock games in the worst possible order, doing the middle one first. The timeline in the BioShock series is a bit tricky to follow the more you dive into it, but I'll do my best to give some context here for those unfamiliar, because the setting of this game is about 90% of the appeal. As a disclaimer, there's some fairly graphic violence throughout the game, though it is still definitely fantasy. In the aftermath of World War II, an aspiring businessman named Andrew Ryan decides that humanity is totally screwed and he doesn't want to live on this planet anymore. But ultimately, we lack the technology to colonize space, so the next best thing is the bottom of the ocean. He funds and builds an enormous underwater city and names it Rapture. The idea behind Rapture is that all ideas are welcome. And everyone is welcome. No gods, no kings, only man. Fast forward a bit, and this freedom of ideas has led to the discovery of Adam, an addictive, gene-altering resource found on the sea floor. This allowed the creation of plasmids, an injection that, for lack of a better term, lets you cast spells. Adam is harvested by the creepiest way possible, brainwashing little girls to extract it from corpses. It's also naturally occurring in rare sea slugs in the area, but whatever. So to protect these little girls, referred to as little sisters, who carry around what is now the most important commodity in all of Rapture, there's Big Daddies. Also brainwashed, but in a giant diver suit, daddies do two things. One, they perform maintenance on the outside of Rapture. They're very important. But they also protect little sisters from harm. In BioShock 2, you play as a Big Daddy. The game starts off on December 31st, 1958. It's New Year's Eve in Rapture, and things have been a bit shaky since the introduction of plasmids, but Andrew Ryan is hoping to turn that around. You're guarding the little sisters throughout the festivities, and you get attacked, mind-controlled, and shoot yourself in the head. That evening kicks off the Rapture Civil War and plunges the city into a chaos it will never recover from, effectively turning it into an inevitable mass grave. Fast forward 10 years, well past the events of BioShock 1, and you wake up! Somehow you're alive, and now have full control over your own body, unlike before as a Big Daddy. You're still in the suit, you're still extremely dangerous. There's been a lot of changes in the last 10 years, notably, Andrew Ryan is out of the picture, but we'll cover that later this year. Now in charge of Rapture is Dr. Sophia Lamb, a psychiatrist that, at some point between the events of the first game and now, has taken control of much of Rapture. She's also the one that made you shoot yourself in the head and took your little sister from you. Isn't she awesome? Working with you throughout the game is Bridget Tenenbaum. Not only was she responsible for the discovery of Adam, she's the creator of the entire Little Sister program. A lot of this game is about major players that created the situation you're in coming to terms with what they've done and trying to atone for their mistakes. Tenenbaum wants to protect the little sisters, but she's also discovered a way to cure them and undo the horrible things she's done to their minds, but needs your help. As you move through the city, different characters will talk to you via radio communication, like Lamb and Tenenbaum, but that's not the only way you use that thing. Much of the story is told through discovery and exploration. There's voice logs that you can find and listen to of past events that piece together to form a cohesive narrative. It's one of BioShock's strongest points for storytelling, and BioShock 2 didn't fix anything that wasn't broken. Mostly. Combat in these games is very satisfying and keeps you on your toes. Most of the enemies you'll face are called splicers. Basically, they're junkies that carry tons of guns and can throw fireballs at you to get their fix. Individually, they're not that hard to kill, but you're vastly outnumbered and resources are scarce. You're managing ammunition for several types of weapons, from guns to your trusty gigantic drill. Look at it go, yeah, get it! You'll also have plasmids at your disposal and can shoot with your right hand and blast people with your left. A lot of the weapons have strengths and weaknesses, and being able to use plasmids simultaneously is a nice quality of life change from the first game, but ultimately, most of the weapons don't feel that different, at least with their base ammunition, though over time you can unlock upgrades that make them feel more distinct as you get later into the game. Each of your weapons has regular ammo, but then also special ammo that has different qualities. For example, your rivet gun, which is basically a glorified super pistol for big daddies, can shoot regular rivets or heavy-duty armor-piercing rivets or trap rivets. The trap rivets are one of my favorite things in the game because there's oftentimes you know that enemies will show up, and you can prepare for them by laying down these traps. Usually when that's happening, it's related to gathering Adam. You'll need Adam to buy more plasmids and tonics, which are basically passive buffs for your character. The main way you collect Adam is by protecting a little sister as she gathers it from dead bodies. The issue is, you don't have a little sister, so you'll need to steal one. When you find one, there's always a big daddy nearby. In order to get her to collect Adam for you, you'll need to kill that big daddy, and they don't go down easy. However, daddies don't fight you until you fight them, so that's one time you'll be able to thoroughly prepare ahead of time. When you have the little sister collect the Adam, she'll be extra vulnerable, and splicers will come out of the woodworks to steal that Adam from you, so that's another time you can prepare for a big fight, but this time it's in large numbers rather than a single terrifying opponent. It works really well and lends itself to some of the more strategy-oriented combat in the game. When you're all done, you can rescue or harvest the little sister. Harvesting gives you more Adam, but there's some delayed benefits to rescuing them over time, so give it some thought. Some additional ways to upgrade your character and make yourself better in combat is there is a cool camera that you can start to record enemies, and then as you fight them and kill them, it makes progress in research, and you get bonuses not only against those specific enemies, but sometimes just new abilities in general, like here where you learn how to charge with your drill, which solves a huge problem of lack of mobility in your giant diver suit. I mentioned that BioShock 2 tried to not fix anything that wasn't broken. One thing it did fix, and as a spoiler, a little nugget, a morsel, a treat, if you will, for later on in the year, is that my biggest complaint with the first BioShock game was the boss battles. They kind of sucked. Major boss fights in BioShock 1 were basically like fighting against a somewhat, but not that much stronger splicer with just way more health. It wasn't interesting. In BioShock 2, you're instead faced with an important story decision like, do you kill the person holding a misplaced grudge on you that's got power and influence in the world, and she has specifically requested you kill her, or do you just grab what she's giving you and show her mercy? Depending on your decision, the events that may follow go differently. It doesn't change the overall narrative, but it does impact some of the hurdles you face to get there.
Come on in and finish the job. Your call, friend. Grace is unarmed for what it's worth.
In this case, I chose to spare Grace Holloway, one of Lamb's lieutenants, and in return, she warned me of the ambush that was waiting for me and armed a bunch of security drones to fight alongside me. Speaking of security drones, the technological advances in Rapture don't stop at genetic modification and pneumatic tubes. There's loads of tech down there, and you can hack pretty much all of it, from vending machines to automated defense turrets. Hacking is a simple minigame of stopping the needle in the green or blue sections. If you hit a colorless section, you'll fail and take some damage, but you can try again. If you hit a red section, it'll backfire and you'll set off alarms. To turn off the alarms, you have to go find the alarm switch and shut everything down. Green sections are pass, and blue sections are pass with a bonus, like a free item from vending machines. Hacking cameras and turrets can make otherwise difficult sections to traverse much more manageable and is a good system. I prefer the first game's hacking method, which I'll cover when I get to it, but doing this in real time while doing everything else does have some benefits. Most of the story for BioShock 2 and the message behind it exists not just as a continuation of that world, but a foil to the first game. BioShock's message was about the pitfalls of extreme individualism and societal dangers it can present. BioShock 2 focused on extreme collectivism and the dangers of cult of personality, with some pretty heavy-handed nods to McCarthyism. Keep in mind that being set predominantly in the late 50s, even though Rapture is fairly removed from the rest of the world, this is happening alongside the peak of the Cold War. The main reason that BioShock 2 isn't a 2-digit ranking is because I thought the story itself, with some exceptions, felt just really on the nose and not actually that interesting. There are some major revelations that are great moments in the story, but the overall narrative felt kind of meh to me. If there's anything that BioShock 2 does better than its siblings, however, is the multiplayer. For starters, it had it. Neither of the other BioShock games have multiplayer, but in order to talk about this, I need to make sure you're in the right frame of mind. Are you ready? The year is 2006. The best-selling games were Mario, Pokemon, Final Fantasy, Animal Crossing, and a handful of sports titles. If you reduce it from global sales to just in the US, we can add Gears of War and Kingdom Hearts to the mix. That's a whole lot of single player. The year is 2007. BioShock releases to massive critical acclaim. It's heralded as a turning point in video game storytelling and will change the way we think of the medium and art form forever. Also, a whole lot of single player. Notably, as a story-driven first-person shooter, it's vastly outsold by Halo 3, in no small part due to the multiplayer components. The year is 2009. The Wii is dominating the market, and the best-selling games are basically all Nintendo and Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Multiplayer first-person shooters effectively dominate the market outside of Nintendo, and nobody is beating them at their own game. The year is 2010. If you want to release a AAA first-person shooter with a story, you better have a multiplayer mode of some kind. Most of the shoehorned multiplayer modes on these shooters weren't very good, and just existed as a way to say they had them for marketing reasons. That being said, I loved BioShock 2's multiplayer, and if it were a standalone game, I still would have bought it and played the hell out of it, but it just came with the game. In the multiplayer, you pick up where the beginning of the game left off, as participants in the Rapture Civil War. Fight on the side of Ryan Industries or Atlas, and make a name for yourself in the seedy underworld of Rapture. The multiplayer mode has its own story, albeit a fairly light one, as you rank up and work through the player progression system. You have your own apartment in Rapture where you can relax and change your outfits or weapon loadouts and listen to the audio logs you unlock to tell this story. It's not much, but it's way better than a random player lobby and is oozing with the atmosphere that the series is known for. There's a handful of game modes, and I'd love to show them to you all, but the servers don't work anymore and there's no AI. So basically the same problem as Monday Night Combat, which I just ranked earlier this week. That all being said, I mostly played the free-for-all deathmatch gameplay. You've got a couple of weapons and a couple of plasmids with some tonic modifications and other upgrades, and then you go. The thing that turns the multiplayer from okay to awesome is that there are points where someone in the game will be provided with the opportunity to become a big daddy. Not only does this make you way stronger, but you're also a major target, as anyone that kills you receives a ton of bonus Adam, which in the multiplayer is the key to the player progression system. It totally changes the dynamic of the game and is a great twist on the traditional shoot everyone combat. That's not to say the multiplayer is without its faults, but it really stands out to me as unique and fun, and I wish I could play it some more. Unfortunately, with the servers gone on the original version of the game, and the terrible decision to not include it in the remaster, it's probably gone forever. It's a good thing the single player is worth it though. Join me tomorrow as I talk about my 170th favorite game, where I churn through more party members in a few hours than most franchises have.